Grand Admiral Kethrun stood before the massive viewing screen in his command center. Below him, the planet Thesara turned slowly in the darkness of space. Its blue oceans and green continents looked peaceful, beautiful even. In 6 hours, it would be nothing but ash and fire. The Admiral's 4 eyes blinked slowly as he reviewed the final reports. Everything was ready. The orbital bombardment fleet held position around the planet. 300 warships of the Valorian Empire waited for his command. Each ship carried enough firepower to crack a continent. Together, they would erase an entire species from existence. "Status report," Kethrun said, his voice calm and professional. "All batteries charged, Grand Admiral," his weapons officer replied. "Targeting solutions locked. We can begin the purification protocol on your order." Purification protocol. The Empire had such clean names for such dirty work. Kethrun had overseen 4 of these operations in his career. The Thesarans would be the 5th species to be completely eliminated. 12 others had already been erased from the galaxy before he took command. The Empire had conquered 47 species in 800 years of expansion. Some served the Empire now. Others had simply disappeared. The Thesarans were unlucky. Their world held rich deposits of crystalline compounds that powered faster-than-light engines. The Empire needed those resources. The Thesarans refused to mine them in the quantities demanded. They were artists and philosophers, not miners and workers. They created beautiful music and painted masterworks. They built cities that looked like gardens. None of that mattered to the Empire. They had 6 hours left to exist. Tribune Velshara entered the command center. She wore the black uniform of the political corps, and her rank pins gleamed under the harsh lights. She had been assigned to observe the operation and ensure proper procedures were followed. She looked at the planet on the screen, and something flickered in her expression. Doubt? Regret? It passed too quickly to tell. "The Galactic Council has filed another protest," Velshara reported. "They demand we stop the operation and withdraw." Kethrun made a sound like laughter. "Did they send ships to enforce their demand?" "No, Grand Admiral, only words." "Then their protest means nothing. The Council has watched us eliminate 12 species. They always protest. They never act. They fear us too much." This was true. The Valorian Empire's military power was unmatched in the known galaxy. Other species formed councils and alliances, but none dared to challenge the Empire directly. The Council would send angry messages, diplomats would make speeches, then everyone would go back to their comfortable lives and pretend Thesara had never existed. Near the back of the command center, a minor figure stood quietly at an observation station. Dr. Min-Jun Park wore the simple gray uniform of a diplomatic observer. His credentials identified him as a representative from Earth, a minor species that had joined the galactic community only 20 years ago. Humans were considered harmless, primitive. Their territory consisted of one star system. They sent observers to major events trying to learn about the galaxy. The Empire allowed it because humans posed no threat whatsoever. Dr. Park watched everything carefully. His eyes missed nothing. He made small notes on a data pad, recording details that seemed unimportant. The time, the ship positions, the exact wording of orders. He had been here for 3 months, observing Valorian operations. No one paid him any attention. Humans were beneath notice. "Begin the evacuation of orbital stations," Kethrun ordered. "All non-military personnel should clear the engagement zone." Alarms sounded throughout the system. The few trading stations and research platforms that orbited Thesara began emergency evacuations. Not that it mattered much. Only a few hundred people worked on those stations. On the planet below, 3.2 billion Thesarans went about their final hours of life, unaware of what was coming. Actually, that was not quite true. The Thesarans knew. Their primitive sensors had detected the Valorian fleet's battle preparations. Messages flooded out from their planet, begging for help, pleading for mercy, offering to negotiate. The Galactic Council received thousands of desperate transmissions. So did dozens of other species. Everyone heard the Thesarans crying out for salvation. No one came to help them. No one ever did. That was how the galaxy worked. Velshara moved to stand beside Kethrun. Grand Admiral, I must ask, is this operation absolutely necessary? The Thesarans have indicated they will increase mining production if given more time. Kethrun turned his 4 eyes toward her. Tribune, the Empire requires those resources immediately, not in 5 years or 10. The Thesarans had their chance to cooperate. They chose to resist. Now they face the consequences of their choice. This is not personal. This is simply efficient. Efficient, Velshara repeated softly. She looked at the planet again. 3 billion lives. 3 billion individuals with thoughts and feelings and families and dreams, all about to become numbers in a military report. Dr. Park continued making his quiet notes. His hand was steady. His expression showed nothing. The countdown continued. 5 hours and 30 minutes remained. Then 5 hours. The Valorian fleet held perfect formation, weapons hot, targeting computers, calculating the most effective pattern of destruction. They would start with the major cities, then the industrial centers, then systematic coverage of every square kilometer of the planet's surface. The bombardment would last approximately 14 hours. When it finished, Thesara would be a dead world, ready for Valorian mining operations to begin. Kethrun prepared to input the final authorization codes. These codes would arm all weapons and begin the automatic firing sequence. Once entered, the purification protocol could not be stopped. It was designed that way, to prevent any last-minute weakness or mercy from interfering with the Empire's needs. His clawed hand reached toward the control panel. The command center fell silent. Officers watched their admiral. This was the moment when words became action, when a planet full of living beings became a planet full of corpses. Kethrun entered the first code, then the second, then the third. Every scanner in the command center suddenly shrieked with alarm. Red lights flashed across every station. Officers shouted in confusion and alarm. The main viewing screen filled with error messages and contact warnings. Something had just appeared in the system. Not one thing. Hundreds of things. Massive signatures that materialized from nowhere, bypassing every detection grid the Empire had deployed. The sensors showed ships. Enormous numbers of ships, in perfect formation, surrounding the entire Valorian fleet. It was impossible. Nothing could approach undetected. Nothing could appear from faster-than-light travel that close to a gravity well. The laws of physics prevented it. Yet there they were. Before Kethrun could speak, every communication system in the fleet activated simultaneously. The Valorians had not opened a channel. Someone else had taken control of their systems and was broadcasting directly into every ship in the fleet. A voice spoke, calm, clear, human. Valorian fleet, this is Admiral Jiwan Choi of the Terran Defense Coalition. Power down your weapons. You have 30 minutes to comply. The Valorian command center erupted in chaos. Officers shouted contradictory reports. Screens flashed with data that made no sense. Grand Admiral Kethrun stared at the tactical display, his 4 eyes wide with something he had not felt in decades. Fear. The display showed 847 warships surrounding his fleet. They had appeared from nowhere, materializing in perfect formation like ghosts, becoming solid. The computer identified them as human vessels. That was impossible. Humans were primitives, newcomers. They barely had one colony outside their home system. Verify those contacts, Kethrun demanded. This must be a sensor error. Verified, Grand Admiral, the sensor officer replied, his voice shaking. All contacts are real. They are broadcasting standard identification codes. All ships identify as Terran Defense Coalition vessels. Configuration unknown. Technology unknown. I have never seen anything like this. Tribune Velshara moved closer to the tactical display. She touched the screen, zooming in on the nearest human ship. It was massive, easily twice the size of a Valorian battleship. Its hull gleamed with strange materials. No weapons were visible on its surface, which somehow made it more threatening. "How did they get here without detection?" she asked quietly. No one had an answer. The Valorian Empire controlled the most advanced sensor networks in the galaxy. Their detection grids could track a single ship entering a star system from light years away. These human ships had appeared within firing range without triggering a single alarm until they were already in position. Dr. Park had moved away from his observation station. He stood near the back of the command center, watching everything carefully. If anyone had been paying attention to him, they might have noticed the small smile on his face. But everyone was focused on the impossible fleet that surrounded them. "Open a channel," Kethron ordered. "I want to speak with this Admiral Choi immediately." The communication screen activated. A human face appeared. Admiral Jiwan Choi looked to be middle-aged by human standards. She had dark eyes and short black hair. She wore a simple blue uniform with minimal decoration. Her expression was calm, patient, like someone who had planned for this moment for a very long time. "Grand Admiral Kethron," Admiral Choi said, speaking in perfect Valorian language. "I hope you will choose to be reasonable. We have no desire for violence today. We simply cannot allow you to proceed with your planned genocide." "Genocide?" Kethron's voice filled with anger. "This is an internal matter of the Empire. You have no authority here, human. Your species is barely spacefaring. You have no right to interfere with our operations." "We have every right," Choi replied calmly. "We have documented 78 years of Valorian atrocities across this galaxy, 12 complete genocides, 47 conquered species, 300 billion sentient beings living under your occupation. We have evidence of every crime, every massacre, every world you have destroyed. We have been watching, Grand Admiral, watching and recording everything." 78 years. The humans claimed they had been in space for 78 years. That was impossible. They had only revealed themselves to the galaxy 20 years ago. Before that, every species believed humans were confined to their home world. "You are bluffing," Kethron said. "Humans have no such capability. Your species does not have the technology or resources for what you describe." Admiral Choi's expression did not change. "Captain Lee, please demonstrate our capabilities." On every Valorian ship in the fleet, something happened simultaneously. Weapon systems powered down. Not through normal shutdown procedures. They simply stopped working. Engines continued running. Life support remained active. Communications functioned normally. But every single weapon on every single ship went offline at the same instant. Kethron's weapons officer stared at his console in horror. "Sir, all weapons offline. I cannot reactivate them. The system is locked out. The lockout is not coming from our computers. It is an external override, but I cannot locate the source." "This is an act of war," Kethron said, his voice low and dangerous. "You have disabled Imperial military vessels. The Empire will crush your pathetic species for this insult." "No, Grand Admiral, you will not." Admiral Choi leaned forward slightly. Her calm expression never wavered. "You will stand down. You will submit to authority of a reformed Galactic Council. You will face justice for your crimes, or your fleet will never leave this system. Choose now." Behind the Admiral, the human command center was visible. Officers moved efficiently at their stations. Everything looked calm, professional, like this was just another day for them. Like surrounding and disabling the most powerful military fleet in the galaxy was routine. Tribune Velshara spoke quietly to Kethron. "Grand Admiral, perhaps we should consider their offer. They have disabled our weapons. If they can do that, they can likely do much worse. We should negotiate. Negotiate? Kethrun's voice filled with contempt. With primitives? Never. They want us to believe they have power. This is an elaborate trick. Some kind of technological deception. What if it is not a trick? Velshara pressed. What if they really have been watching us for 78 years? What if they have documented everything we have done? Kethrun did not answer her. He turned back to the communication screen. Admiral Choi, you have made a serious mistake. Even if you have disabled our weapons temporarily, the Empire has hundreds of fleets, thousands of ships. They will come for you. They will come for your homeworld. Humanity will be erased for this insult. Actually, Admiral Choi said, we have already accounted for that possibility. Right now, every major Valorian fleet base is being monitored by Terran vessels. If any fleet moves to attack human territory, they will face the same situation you face now. We have 800 ships here. We have thousands more in position throughout the galaxy. We have been preparing for this day for 78 years, Grand Admiral. Every move you might make has been anticipated. The tactical display suddenly changed. New contacts appeared across the screen, hundreds of them, thousands, not just in this system, but marked at coordinates throughout Valorian space. Each contact was tagged as a human vessel. They were everywhere, at every major military installation, at every fleet base, at every world the Empire controlled. How was this possible? How had humanity hidden such a massive fleet? How had they remained undetected for so long? Dr. Park finally spoke from the back of the command center. His voice was clear and confident. Perhaps I can explain, Grand Admiral. Every Valorian officer turned to look at the minor diplomatic observer, the human they had all ignored for months. Dr. Park walked forward slowly. My name is Dr. Minjun Park. I am not just an observer. I am one of 412 human intelligence operatives who have been embedded in various positions throughout the galaxy. We have been watching you for decades, learning your systems, studying your technology, understanding your tactics. You never noticed us because you never believed we were worth noticing. Kethrun felt something cold settle in his stomach. 400 human spies, watching, recording, for decades. Every secret Valorian operation had been observed by these invisible witnesses. We spent our resources differently than you expected, Dr. Park continued. While you built empires, we built defense networks. While you conquered worlds, we developed stealth technology. While you committed genocide, we documented everything and prepared to stop you. You believed we were weak because we did not conquer. You were wrong. Admiral Choi spoke again from the screen. Grand Admiral Kethrun, I am now broadcasting to the entire galaxy. Every species will hear what I am about to say. The communication channels activated, not just to the Valorian fleet, to everyone, every planet, every station, every ship. Throughout the entire galactic network, Admiral Choi's voice rang clear. People of the galaxy, I am Admiral Jiwan Choi of the Terran Defense Coalition. For 78 years, humanity has watched in secret as the Valorian Empire committed atrocity after atrocity. We have documented 12 complete genocides. We have evidence of war crimes beyond counting. Today, the Empire attempted to exterminate the Thesaran species. We have stopped them. The planet Thesara is now under Terran protection. The Valorian Empire will submit to justice, or they will face the consequences. Humanity will no longer stand silent while innocents are murdered. This ends now. Across the galaxy, billions of beings heard those words. Species that had lived in fear of the Empire suddenly had hope. Conquered worlds whispered about resistance. The Galactic Council, which had remained silent for centuries, suddenly faced pressure from every member species to take action. Grand Admiral Kethrun realized in that moment that everything had changed. The galaxy he knew was gone. These humans, these supposed primitives, had just challenged the entire foundation of Valorian power, and somehow, impossibly, they might actually win. The emergency session of the Galactic Council convened within hours of Admiral Choi's broadcast. Representatives from 143 species gathered in the Grand Chamber on Council Station Alpha. For the first time in 800 years, the Valorian Empire's delegates sat in the defendant's chair instead of at the high table of power. Ambassador Yun Seo Kang stood at the speaker's podium. She was young for a human diplomat, but her eyes held the weight of decades of hidden knowledge. Behind her, massive holographic screens prepared to show evidence that would shake the foundations of galactic civilization. Councillor Thren, a Diluvian who had served on the council for 60 years, called the session to order. His tentacles quivered slightly as he spoke. This council recognizes Ambassador Kang of Earth. We will hear humanity's accusations against the Valorian Empire. However, I must note that these proceedings are highly irregular. Earth is a junior member of the galactic community. The charges presented are extraordinary and potentially destabilizing. Destabilizing? Ambassador Kang's voice carried clearly through the chamber. Counselor, what could be more destabilizing than 12 complete genocides? What could be more irregular than 300 billion sentient beings living under military occupation? For decades, this council has remained silent, while the Valorian Empire committed atrocity after atrocity. Today, that silence ends. She touched a control on the podium. The holographic screens activated, filling with images and data. The evidence I present today was gathered over 78 years by human intelligence operatives working throughout the galaxy. Every piece of evidence has been verified multiple times. Every claim is supported by documentation, testimony, and physical evidence. The first image showed a beautiful world with purple skies and silver oceans. This was Kelmar Prime, home to the Kelmaran species. Population, 800 million. They were artists and musicians. Their crime was refusing to convert their agricultural land into industrial mining operations. The Valorian Empire exterminated them 42 years ago. This council issued a statement of concern and took no further action. More images appeared. World after world, species after species, each one destroyed, each genocide documented in horrible detail. The holographic displays showed civilian populations being bombed, cities burning, refugees fleeing, only to be hunted down and killed. The evidence was overwhelming, undeniable. Many council delegates looked away from the screens. Some left the chamber entirely. The Valorian delegate, Ambassador Kreshatar, sat rigid in his chair, his face expressionless. We have documented 12 complete genocides, Ambassador Kang continued. But the crimes go far beyond these. 47 species currently live under Valorian occupation. We have evidence of forced labor, systematic suppression of culture, and brutal repression of any resistance. 300 billion beings live as subjects of an empire built on murder. A Krellis delegate raised one of his multiple arms. Ambassador Kang, these accusations are serious. But I must ask, what right did humanity have to spy on the galactic community? You operated in secret for decades. You concealed your true capabilities. Is this not also a form of deception? Ambassador Kang turned to face the Krellis delegate directly. Counselor, we entered a galaxy where the dominant military power was actively committing genocide, where the ruling body, this council, consistently refused to intervene to stop these crimes. We had every right to understand what kind of civilization we were joining before revealing ourselves. We chose to watch and gather evidence rather than immediately become another conquered species. Councillor Thren spoke again, his voice uncertain. But humanity's actions have disrupted centuries of stability. The Valorian Empire has been a dominant force for 800 years. This stability, while imperfect, has prevented larger conflicts. What you propose could lead to chaos. Stability? Ambassador Kang's voice rose with barely controlled anger. You call this stability? Counselor, 12 species have been completely erased from existence during your so-called stable period. Entire civilizations, gone forever. Their art, their music, their philosophy, their children, all dead. And you call this stability? She paused, taking a breath to calm herself. When she spoke again, her voice was steadier but no less passionate. Stability built on corpses is not peace. It is mass burial. It is cowardice dressed up as diplomacy. This council has the blood of billions on its hands because you chose comfort over justice. The chamber fell silent. Many delegates refused to meet Ambassador Kang's eyes. They knew she was right. They had always known. They had simply chosen not to act because acting was dangerous and expensive and difficult. We have more than documentation, Ambassador Kang said. We have witnesses. Survivors of species the galaxy believes were completely exterminated. Humanity has been secretly evacuating refugees for decades. We have hidden populations of extinct species living safely in human space, preserving their cultures and knowledge. Today, one of them has agreed to testify. A figure entered the chamber. He walked slowly, using a support cane. His species was unfamiliar to most council delegates because everyone believed his people were dead. His name was Tekmai, and he was Kelmaran, one of fewer than 5,000 survivors of his entire species. The chamber erupted in shocked whispers. Delegates leaned forward, staring at the impossible sight of a member of an extinct species walking among them. Tekmai reached the podium. His voice was soft, but the chamber's sound system carried it clearly to every delegate. My name is Tekmai. I am Kelmaran. 42 years ago, I watched Valorian warships destroy my world. They burned our cities. They hunted survivors through the forests. My family died trying to reach the evacuation points. I survived because a human ship arrived in secret and pulled refugees from the killing zones. 218 Kelmarans were saved that day. We have lived in human protection ever since. He paused, his hands trembling on the cane. Humans asked nothing from us. They gave us homes, resources, and protection. They helped us preserve our language and culture. They did this knowing it might put them at risk with the Empire. They saved us because they believed it was the right thing to do, because they could not stand by and watch genocide happen without trying to help someone, anyone. Tekmai looked directly at Councillor Thren. This council knew my people were being exterminated. You knew because we sent you thousands of transmissions begging for help. You received our messages and did nothing. Humanity heard our cries and came for us. Which civilization deserves your respect? The one that commits murder, or the one that risks everything to save strangers? The question hung in the chamber. No one had an answer. Ambassador Kreshitar, the Valorian delegate, finally spoke. His voice was cold. This testimony is meaningless. The Empire acted within its sovereign rights. The Kelmarans refused legal orders. The response was appropriate. As for humanity's interference, this is an act of war. The Empire has already dispatched 8 battle fleets to Thesara. They will remove the human fleet and complete the necessary operations. Then they will deal with Earth itself. Ambassador Kang smiled slightly. It was not a pleasant expression. Ambassador Kreshitar, your fleets are already moving. We detected their departure 18 hours ago. They should arrive at Thesara within the next 6 hours. Then you understand that your fleet there will be destroyed, Kreshitar replied. 8 Imperial battle fleets against your single defensive force. The mathematics are clear. Actually, Ambassador Kang said, the mathematics are very different than you think. Your 8 fleets together number approximately 3,400 ships. Our fleet at Thesara has been reinforced. We currently have 1,064 vessels in defensive positions around Thesara, along with automated defense platforms we seeded throughout the system decades ago. But numbers are not what matter here. She touched her podium controls again. A new holographic display appeared, showing a star map with 8 Valorian fleets marked in red, all converging on Thesara. What matters, Ambassador, is whether your fleet commanders will fire on people who are only trying to protect innocents, whether your soldiers will follow orders to commit genocide when the entire galaxy is watching, whether your officers will remain loyal to an empire built on murder when offered a choice to do something better. Kreshtar stood abruptly. You know nothing of Imperial loyalty. Our forces will crush you. The Empire has stood for 800 years. It will not fall because primitives suddenly developed weapons and delusions of moral authority. We will see, Ambassador Kang replied calmly. The entire galaxy will see, because every moment of the coming battle will be broadcast live to every species, every world, every being capable of receiving transmissions. Everyone will watch what happens when people willing to die to protect strangers face an empire willing to kill for profit. We will discover which is stronger, weapons or principles. The session adjourned in chaos. Delegates argued and shouted. Some demanded immediate sanctions against the Valorian Empire. Others urged caution, fearing the consequences of challenging such a powerful military force. The Council had never been more divided. But across the galaxy, billions of beings prepared to watch what would happen at Thesara. For the first time in living memory, someone had stood up to the Valorian Empire. Someone had said no. Humanity had thrown down a challenge. Now the galaxy would see if courage could triumph over power. The 8 Valorian battle fleets emerged from faster-than-light travel at the edge of the Thesara system. 3,400 warships, the largest military force assembled in decades, all converging on one point. Fleet Marshal Draxun commanded the operation from his flagship Inevitable Victory. He expected a quick battle. One day, perhaps 2. The human fleet would be destroyed, and the purification protocol would proceed. What he found instead made him question his understanding of warfare itself. The human defensive fleet had grown. More than 1,000 ships now surrounded Thesara in overlapping protective layers. But that was not the strange part. The strange part was their positioning. Every human vessel had placed itself between the Valorian fleet and the planet. They formed a living shield, their hulls exposed to Valorian weapons, protecting a world full of beings they had never met. Marshal, we are receiving a transmission from the human fleet, his communication officer reported. Let me hear it, Draxun ordered. A human voice, calm and professional, filled the command center. Valorian forces, this is Captain Sung-Ho Lee of the Terran Defense Coalition. We have no desire for battle. Our mission is purely defensive. We will not fire on your vessels unless you attempt to attack Thesara. However, we will not move. If you wish to reach the planet, you will have to go through us. Draxun studied the tactical display. The human formation was interesting. Defensive, but with clear firing lanes. Their ships were positioned to absorb damage while protecting the planet. They had obviously planned this carefully. But why? Why would any species sacrifice their ships and crews for strangers? Broadcast to all vessels, Draxun commanded. All fleets will advance to engagement range. Fire on any human ship that does not retreat. The Empire will not be deterred by this foolish display. The massive Valorian armada began moving forward. Engines flared, weapons charged. 3,400 ships against 1,000. The mathematics seemed clear. Across the galaxy, billions of beings watched. The humans had kept their promise. Every major news network, every communication system capable of receiving broadcasts carried live feeds from the battle zone. Humans, Valorians, Thesarans, Kelmarans, Krellis, Diluvians, and hundreds of other species All watched together as history unfolded. The first Valorian ships entered firing range. They launched their weapons. Missiles streaked through space. Energy beams lanced across the darkness. All of it targeted human vessels. The human ships did not dodge. They did not retreat. They held position and took the hits. Their shields absorbed some damage. Their armor plating absorbed more. But some shots got through. Human ships began taking casualties, hull breaches, system failures, escape pods launched from critically damaged vessels. The humans did not return fire. Tribune Velshara watched from her assigned position aboard the Imperial flagship Dominance. She had been transferred here after the incident at Thesara the first time. She was supposed to monitor and report on the operation. Instead, she found herself watching something she did not understand. "Why are they not fighting back?" she asked her commanding officer. "They are fools," the officer replied. "They will be destroyed, and the lesson will be clear. No one challenges the Empire." But Velshara was not certain. She watched as human ships burned and died, holding their positions, protecting strangers, refusing to abandon their mission even as they took terrible losses. This was not foolishness. This was something else. Something she had no word for in the Valorian language. Captain Sung-Ho Lee's voice broadcast again, not just to the Valorian fleet but to the entire galaxy. "To all beings watching, we want you to understand our purpose. Humanity does not seek conquest. We do not desire territory or power. We are here because the Thesaran people, who never harmed anyone, are about to be murdered for their resources. We are here because someone must stand between innocent beings and those who would destroy them. We are here because it is right." More human ships took damage. The count of destroyed vessels rose. 10 ships, 20, 30. The humans absorbed punishment that would have broken most fleets. They maintained formation, protected the planet, did not return fire. Admiral Ji-Won Choi appeared on broadcasts from the human flagship Unity's promise. "Valorian forces, we know you are following orders. We know many of you are good people doing what you believe is your duty. But we ask you to think about what you are doing. You are firing on people who are trying to protect innocents, people who are dying to give strangers a chance to live. Is this what you joined the military to do? Is this the kind of soldier you want to be?" On hundreds of Valorian ships, crews heard those words. They looked at their targeting screens and saw human vessels burning, saw escape pods drifting, saw people dying while protecting others. Many Valorian soldiers had joined the military for honor, for duty, for protection of their own people. None of them had imagined they would spend their careers destroying species that posed no threat. Tribune Velshara made a decision. It was possibly the most dangerous decision of her life. She opened a secure channel directly to Admiral Choi's flagship. If her commanders discovered this, she would be executed for treason. She did not care anymore. "Admiral Choi, this is Tribune Velshara of the Valorian Imperial Fleet. I need to ask you something. Why are you not fighting back? You are being destroyed. Why not defend yourselves?" There was a pause. Then Admiral Choi's face appeared on Velshara's private screen. The human admiral looked tired but determined. "Because we are not here to win a war, Tribune. We are here to stop one. If we fight back, this becomes a battle between two fleets. But if we only defend, if we only protect, then everyone watching sees the truth. They see people willing to die to save strangers facing an empire willing to kill for profit. They see what both of our civilizations truly value." "You are going to die," Velshara said. "All of you, for people you do not even know." "Yes," Admiral Choi replied simply. "Some things are worth dying for. Protecting innocent life is one of them. We believe that. Do you?" Velshara looked at her command screens. She saw the tactical situation, saw human ships burning, saw the planet Thesara, where 3 billion Thesarans waited to see if anyone in the galaxy cared whether they lived or died. She thought about her career, about the operations she had overseen, about the species she had watched the Empire conquer or destroy, about all the times she had told herself this was just military necessity. Just following orders, just the way things were done. She was tired of all the lies. Velshara broadcast on the fleet-wide channel. Her voice shook, but her words were clear. All Valorian vessels, this is Tribune Velshara. I am ordering my ship to cease fire immediately. We are firing on people who are dying to protect strangers. We are attacking beings who have not raised a weapon against us. This is not warfare. This is not honor. This is murder. I will not participate. Her ship, the destroyer Relentless Duty, powered down weapons. Silence fell across the command center as her crew realized what she had done. Then, slowly, they began following her order. One station after another went quiet. The ship ceased fire. Fleet Marshal Draxoon's voice roared across the communication channels. Tribune Velshara, you are relieved of command. I order your immediate arrest for treason. But something was happening across the Valorian fleet. Other ships were ceasing fire. Not many at first. 3 ships, then 12, then entire squadrons. Captains and crews watching the same thing Velshara watched. Seeing humans die protecting innocents. Seeing that Admiral Choi had been telling the truth. This was not about conquest. This was about protection. More ships stopped firing. Commanders broadcast to their crews, explaining they could not continue. They could not be part of genocide, while beings from another species literally died trying to stop them. The Valorian fleet began to fracture, not through defeat but through conscience. 30% of vessels had ceased fire. Another 40% hesitated, their crews questioning orders, their commanders uncertain whether to proceed. Draxon watched his perfect military operation dissolve into chaos. He had the firepower to destroy the human fleet, but he no longer had the unity of command needed to use it. His forces were divided, not by enemy action, but by moral doubt. And across the galaxy, everyone watched. Every species saw what humanity had done, saw people willing to die for strangers, saw the moment when the Valorian Empire's greatest strength, its military power, failed because some of its own forces refused to commit atrocity. The tide was turning, not through weapons, through example. 1 month after the Battle of Thesara, the galaxy looked very different. The Valorian Empire had not fallen through military defeat. It had collapsed from within. When Fleet Marshal Draxoon's forces fractured, with dozens of ships refusing to continue the attack, the chain reaction spread throughout Imperial space. Commanders questioned orders, crews demanded explanations. Conquered species saw their occupiers divided and began organizing resistance. Within weeks, the empire that had stood for 800 years simply fell apart. The old Galactic Council dissolved in disgrace. Too many member species demanded change. Too many populations had watched humans die protecting Thesarans and asked why their own governments had remained silent for centuries. New elections happened across dozens of worlds. New delegates arrived at Council Station Alpha with mandates to create something better. Ambassador Yoon Seo Kang stood in the new assembly chamber, looking at the gathered representatives. The chamber had been redesigned. Instead of high tables and low tables showing hierarchy, every delegate sat at the same level. Every species had equal voice. The Valorian delegate was here too, representing the new provisional government that had formed after the Empire's collapse. He sat beside representatives from species his empire had once conquered. "We call this the new Galactic Assembly," Ambassador Kang explained to a visiting reporter. "Not a council where powerful species make decisions for everyone else. An assembly where all voices matter equally, where protection of sapient life is the highest priority, not military strength or economic power." The reporter, a Krellis named Thaxan, gestured at the Valorian delegate. "How do former enemies work together?" "They start by acknowledging what happened," Kang replied, "by facing the truth, by choosing to build something better." The first major action of the new Galactic Assembly had been establishing war crimes tribunals. Grand Admiral Keth Run and 47 other senior Valorian commanders faced justice for their actions. The trials were public. Evidence was presented. Victims testified. The proceedings were broadcast throughout the galaxy so everyone could see that power no longer placed someone above justice. Tribune Velshara testified against her former commanders. She provided detailed information about operations she had witnessed or participated in. Her testimony was devastating. When asked why she chose to speak against her own people, she had said simply, "They were never my people. My people are those who choose honor over atrocity. Species does not matter. Principles do." Keth Run and the senior commanders were sentenced to life imprisonment, not execution. Humanity had pushed for imprisonment rather than death penalties. As Admiral Ji-Wan Choi explained to the Assembly, "We want them to live with what they have done. We want them to spend their remaining years understanding the weight of their choices. Death would be too easy." But trials were not enough. The real work was reconstruction and healing. The human initiative called the Terran Protection Accords became the foundation of the new galactic order. Any species could request protection guarantees from humanity and its growing coalition of allied species. Protection came with no strings attached, no territorial demands, no economic requirements, just the promise that no one would face genocide alone again. 34 species signed the accords in the first month. Former Valorian subjects, small civilizations that had lived in fear, species that had been powerless in the old order. All of them found shelter under the protection of beings who had proven they would sacrifice themselves for strangers. Dr. Min-Jun Park returned to Thesara. He walked through the capital city, which was rebuilding with help from dozens of species. Thesaran artists created new works commemorating their survival. Musicians composed pieces honoring those who had saved them. The streets buzzed with life that almost had not existed. A young Thesaran approached Dr. Park. She carried flowers native to her world. "You were here before," she said softly. "You watched everything. You recorded our crisis so others would know. Thank you for seeing us when everyone else looked away." Dr. Park accepted the flowers. "We could not stand by. Once we knew what was happening, we had to act. Any decent being would have done the same." "But they did not," the young Thesaran replied. "The Council knew. The galaxy knew. Only humans came. We will never forget that." Memorial gardens were being built throughout Thesara. One held a wall with names inscribed in multiple languages, the names of human crew members who had died at the Battle of Thesara, holding the line while Thesarans sheltered below. 243 humans had given their lives. The memorial read, "On this day, beings we never met risked everything to save us. May we be worthy of their sacrifice." But humanity's greatest achievement was not military or political. It was something quieter and more profound. In a facility in human space, scientists and cultural specialists worked with small populations of species the galaxy had believed were extinct. The Kelmarons numbered nearly 5,000 now. The Previans, another supposedly extinct species, had 800 survivors. The Solmarians had 300. Humanity had secretly saved remnant populations from 12 different genocides over 78 years. Now, with the Valorian threat ended, these species could begin to truly live again. The Assembly voted to return homeworlds to surviving populations, to provide resources for rebuilding, to ensure these cultures would not only survive, but flourish. Tekmai stood on Kelmar Prime for the first time in 42 years. The planet had been dead when the Valorians finished with it. Now, with support from dozens of species, life was returning. Plants grew in carefully tended gardens. Water flowed in restored rivers. Buildings rose from the ruins. "We thought our world was gone forever," Tekmai said to Ambassador Kang, who had come to witness the return. "We thought our culture would die with the last of us. Humanity proved us wrong. You saved not just our lives, but our future." Ambassador Kang smiled. "We saved what we could. But you and your people are the ones bringing Kelmar back to life. You are the ones preserving your culture. We just gave you the chance." Admiral Jiwan Choi had transitioned from military command to heading the new Galactic Peacekeeping Force. This force combined vessels from 63 different species, all committed to protecting sapient life. They patrolled space, responded to distress calls, and intervened in conflicts before they could escalate to genocide. Captain Sung-Ho Lee, who had held the line at Thesara while human ships burned around him, now commanded a peacekeeping squadron. His crew was mixed species: humans, former Valorians who had defected, Thesarans who wanted to give back, and representatives from a dozen other civilizations. They worked together, protecting those who could not protect themselves. Commander Hyejin Nam ran the new Galactic Emergency Response Network. This system ensured that any species facing existential threat could send a call for help that would be heard and answered. Never again would billions of beings send desperate pleas into silence. Never again would atrocity happen because no one came. The transformation was not complete. Problems remained. Wounds needed time to heal. Some former Imperial loyalists resisted change. Some species struggled with the new equality after centuries of hierarchy. Building a just galaxy from the ruins of an empire would take generations. But the foundation was laid. The principle was established. The galaxy had learned that protection of innocent life mattered more than power. That strength used to defend was more valuable than strength used to conquer. That beings from any species could choose to be heroes by standing up for those who could not stand for themselves. Admiral Choi and Ambassador Kang stood together at a viewing window in the new assembly station, looking out at the stars. Ships from hundreds of worlds moved through space nearby, all flying the banner of the Galactic Peacekeeping Force alongside their own flags. "Did we just become responsible for half the galaxy?" Kang asked with a slight smile. Choi shook her head. "No. We became proof that strength does not require cruelty. That powerful species can choose protection over conquest. The galaxy is becoming responsible for itself. We just reminded everyone that was possible." Below them, in the assembly chamber, delegates from 143 species worked together on new treaties and protections. Former enemies sat side by side, building something better. Species that had never met before formed alliances based on shared values rather than shared interests. It was messy, it was complicated, it was imperfect, but it was just. And that made all the difference. Somewhere in human space, children played in parks while their parents worked on rebuilding projects for distant worlds they would never visit. They helped because it was right, because someone needed help, because that was what decent beings did. The message was spreading. The example was set. Throughout the galaxy, species that had once believed power equaled dominance learned a new truth. Real power was the strength to protect. Real courage was standing between evil and those it threatened. Real honor was sacrificing for strangers who could never repay you. Humanity had not conquered the galaxy. They had shown it a better way. And slowly, world by world, species by species, the galaxy chose to follow that example. The Empire had trembled when human warfleets materialized without warning. But in the end, it was not the warships that changed everything. It was the willingness of ordinary beings to do extraordinary things, to stand firm when it would be easier to step aside, to protect when it would be safer to ignore, to care when caring meant sacrifice. That willingness, more than any weapon, reshaped the stars.